guys, we have to get these salt shakers filled for the dining car in the Midnight Express. You heard Stacy.
So as long as I keep the Big Dipper to my right, I won't get lost.
Mr. Conductor? Why are you dressed like that? Are you going to a costume party?
Costume? This is my uniform. I have a new job. You see, I'm a member of the Sandman Sleepy Time Volunteers, and tonight I'm helping Mr. Sandman.
You are?
Exciting, isn't it? I'll be traveling at blink speed. Now, let's see. I have my map of the Indian Valley Snore Zone. This is my area. Now, where did I put the... Oh, here it is. Mustn't lose the sleepy sand.
Sleepy sand?
Well, it's not real sand like you'd find on a beach. It's really just dried tears with a pinch of magic mixed in. You don't use too much, just a smidgen. Or is it a dash?
But what would happen if you didn't put the sleepy sand in people's eyes? Yeah.
If we didn't use the sleepy sand? Oh, I don't even want to think about that.
You mean we wouldn't go to sleep?
I'm afraid not.
Good. Sleeping is a waste of time.
Time is never wasted when you sleep. Speaking of time, I must set off at exactly 5 winks before drowsy time. Timing is everything. A lesson that Thomas and Bertie learned the hard way. I have just enough time to tell you about it.
The engines were finding life difficult. Workmen were mending the viaduct on the main line. The arches needed strengthening. Sir Topham Hatt did not want to close the railway while the work was done, and so repairs took a long time. The engines had to take great care when crossing the viaduct, and the delay often made them late on their journey to the junction, where they knew Thomas would be ready to collect his passengers. Thomas grew crosser and crosser. "Time's time," he grumbled. "Why should I keep my passengers waiting while Henry and James dawdle about all day on viaducts?" "Don't blame me," snorted Henry. "If we hurried across the viaduct, it might collapse, and then you'd have no passengers at all. What would you do then?" "Run my train on time, for one thing," retorted Thomas. He hurried away before Henry could answer. Bertie was impatient, too. He was timed to arrive just after Thomas. His passengers found that instead of going straight from the bus to their train, they were kept waiting till Thomas arrived. Soon Bertie grew cross with Thomas. "Late again," he remarked, as Thomas panted wearily in. "We may be friends, but I thought you could go fast, Thomas. It's time we had another race. I reckon I could beat you now." Thomas let off steam loudly. "Rubbish!" he hissed fiercely. "It's those main line engines. They dither about on the viaduct, and they blame Sir Topham Hatt's workmen. It's just an excuse for laziness, if you ask me." One day, James was later than ever at the junction. "I'm sorry, Thomas," he puffed. "I was held up at the station, and the viaduct made it worse." "It's lucky for you I'm a guaranteed connection," grumbled Thomas. Before James could answer, he puffed importantly away. Come along," he panted to the coaches. Annie and Clarabelle did their best, but Thomas soon found that he couldn't save much time. Suddenly, Thomas saw Bertie ahead. His radiator was steaming. "What's the matter?" asked Thomas. "You should be at the station by now. You're late." I feel dreadful, moaned Bertie, all upset inside, and driver says he can't make me better. Thank goodness you're late, too. Can you take my passengers, please? They'll never get home otherwise. Of course, agreed Thomas. He now felt sorry for Bertie and promised to get help at the next station. Thomas set off again. Already he felt much more cheerful, and Bertie's passengers, traveling in Annie and Clarabelle, all reached home safely. When Bertie was better, he came to thank Thomas. I'm sorry I teased you about being late. That's all right, replied Thomas. I'm glad I could help. There are times when being late isn't such a bad thing after all. With a last cheerful greeting, the two friends went back to work.
Of course, there are worse things than being late. And if I were ever late, I'd hope my friends would help me, like Thomas helped Bertie. Oh, nodding hour is over in just a few winks. I want to make sure I've got everything. Uniform? Check. Map? Check. Sleepy Sand? Better double check.
Mr. Conductor, are you all right? Mr. Conductor, watch out!
Was it a feather, or was it the weather that made me sneeze? Oh, my knees.
His eyes are full of sleepy sand. Oh, Mr. Conductor, don't go to sleep.
I love to sleep without counting sheep.
Oh, no. Mr. Conductor's walking and talking in his sleep. Carol, let's follow him so he doesn't hurt himself. Yeah. Dan, you better hide the sleepy sand and finish filling the salt shakers. Right.